economic thing that people find, even from, let's call it the pure economist side of the supply and demand curves, is that when you open up things, when you open up supposed markets, and again, this goes back to this question of, to the New York real estate corollary, we are competing for demand with a lot more people when you open up things, and that drives prices up and that drives costs up, right? When you open up financial markets so that foreign investment can pay for brownstones in Brooklyn as well. The more people you compete with to buy things.
Every day I get solicitations on the phone by mail from my grandson.
People do not think about competing over demand.
Harassment.
Oh, higher competition, higher demand. That we are competing with a lot more people for demand, and therefore have to outbid a larger pool of global consumers for some things.
We see that very vividly here, because you hear a lot of whatever Dutch and German people moving in, whatever they are, and longtime residents being pushed out.
And again, foreign investment in again all over Manhattan, and the then trickle down out pushing effect. Then even if we were to measure, and think people don't measure, and even if we were to measure just the first level impact, it isn't good. But then we stop measuring, instead of thinking of a displaced person displaces another, where does the ripple effect stop? No, we don't care about them. Those ripples aren't big enough to matter, except who's getting rippled, and that is always poor people, always people of color, always women, always the most vulnerable in our society. Some of question of this trade deal and whether economically we can think it's worth it.
No, we can't.
We can't. I'm confident in that. According to EPI, they believe that this could cut through a continued reshuffling of national income, could negatively impact 90% of the population, just to throw out a number. That there will be continued displacement, much like NAFTA and others on steroids.
How many? What percentage?
EPI says 90% of the population, which again, if you think about 90% of the country owns nothing, I think you could probably guess where that overlap is going to be. The people who own nothing will be worse. The people who own lots will be better, and a few people in the middle may not move much. It's the way just about every scheme seems to work right now in our country. So there will be a displacement of jobs. Again, and there was a question asked earlier, what can be attributed directly to just TPP, much like what could be contributed to direct. We can't say for sure. We know that it's part of why we know that the Trans-Pacific Partnership isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening in the context of the continued technological revolution, the continued change in our industrial society, all of these globalizations. So we can't really say what is just from that, but we do believe, and people do believe, that there will be this speeding up of displacement with no idea in our society how to deal with that. People will throw around things like training. We should just train people for the new economy. But there isn't the jobs there. So again, having a conversation around a Trans-Pacific Partnership without having a conversation about guaranteed national incomes, or having a conversation about lowering hours at work, or none of that is even being discussed. None of that is part of this calculation. All we know is that the speed of displacement will continue and will get faster.